The Windmill Boy is an animated film born from the imagination of first-time director Dan Richards. The story tells of a boy kept prisoner in a windmill by an evil horde. The film's story required large sets with hundreds of props, which were painstakingly made, mostly by a young, up-and-coming crew, on a negligible budget. Windmill Boy is animated using the traditional stop-motion technique, where the models are moved a painstaking 24 times to produce just 1 second of film. To achieve this, Dan needed a team he could trust and called upon the help of some old friends from his animating days in Bristol. To speed up the process further, the studio was split in two. This way, multiple sets could be animated at once. Before beginning their work each day, the animators would act out each sequence so they could practice for timing, pace, and performance.
Shot 6, 9, and 13, exterior windmill. Okay, go on. Well, not too much, not too much. This is just shake it, yeah. Animation is a slow process, and on this project the timetable is very tight. The schedule is very tight, so you have to make things quick. And sometimes you are a bit frustrated that you can't do your shot again, and so that at this point you enjoy a bit less. But there's nothing you can do.
We'll try to make just small movements.
Here everything goes in a slow motion. Every second is 24 frames. Every shot has to be prepared, light, camera and stuff like that. Sometimes we have to shoot 4 shots in one day.
We always find some little problems, but then you know, I think it's animation is also to find a way to cheat in a certain way and and make the thing work, make the audience believe that there were no problems.
Once the animation was completed and all the models safely packed away, there was still a long way to go. The film was then passed on to many pairs of hands, so it could be edited, have visual effects attached, and finally have its sound effects and music added.
Okay, so once the animators had finished animating, they presented me with the final edit of the film, and basically the windmill shots where the windmill's flying through the sky, the way the animators actually achieved that was to attach it to a rigging. So it was basically my job to use a software called After Effects to remove the rig frame by frame, so in a sense cutting out the rig frame by frame. Well, Dan also wanted me to do some special effects on the film, and my biggest job was to bring to life the storm sequence by adding a lot of leaves flying across the shot.
Once the visual edit was done, the film was then given to me, and it was up to me to go and record sound effects, create sound effects, however, just to bring the film to life, really.
When approaching scoring the first film, I had to go from the point that, as there was very little sound effects and no narration, that the music had to help tell the story in a much more obvious way, very old school way, where if the character moved, I made moving music, that kind of thing. If he went upstairs, I did music that went sounded like it was going upstairs. When I got to the second film, as there were much more detailed sound effects and a narration on there, it meant that I could take much more of a supporting role. I treat it much more like any kind of short film.
Now the foraging tree is only found by getting lost, and then lost again. But once at its roots, the real search begins.
Sitting here today, I'm just amazed how this whole film's been made, really. All the technicians, the sound guys, the animators, the model makers, they've all done such a good job. And I really couldn't imagine what we've actually come up with now, like when I first sat down and started doing all my drawings in my bedroom, like a year, 18 months ago. It's amazing.
For me, the absolute best thing was walking into the main studio and seeing the set of the village with all the town folk and the scenery disappearing into the background, and it looked wonderful.
Making a movie like this with no professional crew is a big challenge. It was, I mean, for me, it's this movie is very ambitious. You ask the animators to do lots of work, which is really hard, and it's not as if we were animator for 10 years, you know, so it's kind of difficult, but it's good to have a challenge.
I think one of the nice things is that Dan has very much tied the music in with the film, and I think, you know, in any future projects with Windmill Boy as a character, the music is quite, you know, important.
I love the Windmill Boy story, and I'd love to see a lot more digital effects within that. So, for instance, I could see all sorts of exciting sagas where the windmill's flying through the sky, Windmill Boy's hanging from the windmill.
If Windmill Boy goes on in the future, that there's great potential for quite a lot of weird and interesting characters, which I can see being quite fun to make.
I'd love there to be another Windmill Boy, getting to work on making lots more props and weird and wonderful creatures on a much bigger scale.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun designing new worlds for this character to go to.
Well, for me, the story of Windmill Boy's only just begun, really. Kind of now Windmill Boy's flying in this windmill, you know, there's lots of different directions he can be going in. For me, I'd like to tell a story kind of where Windmill Boy originally came from and show where he's going to be going, flying along in his windmill. But kind of, yeah, the story's only just begun now.